Greetings and welcome to Grog's Garage. As promised in an earlier video, I want to give you a walkthrough of some of the things that I've added to the NT1100. A couple of the things are really necessary, some of them are just cosmetic, but I think you'll find it interesting to see what you can add to this bike. Let's get started. This is just a brief intermission to kindly ask you to like and subscribe if you enjoy this video. I'd also like to note that below in the comments are links to all of the items I'm going to mention, and some of them are affiliate links. They don't cost you anything, but they do help me out a little bit, and I thank you for that. Here we go. Something that I think is almost a necessity on the NT1100 is an aftermarket windshield, and certainly it's probably the best investment I made as far as aftermarket gear goes on this. The problem with the stock windshield is that it's way too flexible. It flexes a lot in the wind and under normal riding conditions, so giving just a distracting vibration right in front of your face. And it also is just a little too short, and if you notice when you raise the windshield on the NT1100, the top two tiers, and in particular the top one, make the windshield go almost straight upright. Whereas when you get down into the middle position, it's angled back more. Having it in that upright position created a lot of buffeting for me. At least at 510, it was really annoying buffeting, especially at like highway speeds. So getting an aftermarket windshield, this is a V-Stream tall, and adding this wind deflector on the top makes it so that this windshield is high enough to give me a nice pocket of still air without being at the high position. I can leave this at the mid position. The important thing to look for when you're looking for a windshield is to look at the distance between this top mounting screw and the top of the windshield. Most manufacturers and online retailers will tell you the distance from the top to bottom, but that doesn't tell the whole story, in particular when you're trying to overcome that tilt effect on the NT1100. So you may have to contact them and ask them, what's the distance between here and here? This V-Stream tall is actually about 1.5 inches longer between these 2 points than the stock windshield. What that does is it gives me another 1.5 inches at the top, and of course adding this deflector on top adds a little more, so that I can leave the windshield at a lower position, get it more tilted back, and force that air up and over me rather than coming down right onto the chin of my helmet, which is what causes the buffeting. So an aftermarket windshield is a really good investment. And there's a lot of different ones. I'd love to try all of them, to be honest with you. The V-Stream is the one that I settled on. I'm reasonably happy with it. It does allow probably a little more air coming on my body than I'd like, but it's still pretty good. Crash bars aren't adding anything to your daily riding, but should you lay the bike down, these would be really nice to have. These are Zytomer, and it was a little weird the way they had them listed. They have them listed for 2024 and earlier NT1100s, which would all be European spec models. 2025 is slightly different, and early reports were that these crash bars didn't fit correctly. However, in the version that I got, they listed it up to 2025, and they actually included a separate package with a longer bolt for right back here that makes them compatible with the 2025 model. Speaking of protection, tip over protection, we'll go to the bag guards here. These were, I think, Chive Fun, and I'm not as pleased with these. They are not very sturdy. These Zytomer crash bars are extremely heavy and sturdy. These are not. They have a lot of flexibility, and I really question whether they even stick out far enough to protect the bags. So these are nice for a place to mount cameras or a drink holder, but as far as protection goes, I really question whether they're useful or not. That was probably the first thing I added to the bike, and I kind of regret that purchase. Move on to the seat. I got this mesh seat cover primarily for airflow, but it actually has turned out to add just the right amount of padding to the seat, which I was thinking about replacing and now I have not considering it. By moving it far forward like this, it keeps me from sliding forward and keeps me more oriented towards the rear of the seat where there's a little more padding. It just feels a lot better. I still wouldn't mind trying the comfort seat, but this is a good low-cost solution for right now. Now on to the tank bag. This is an SW Motec Pro Mini, and it attaches with a ring that replaces the original gas cap ring. It's good and secure when it's attached, and it's really easy to remove to get to the gas cap. And it provides a nice amount of accessible storage. I do remember that the ring was a little difficult to find on their site, but it is there. Next up is a gadget bar that I added here that just bolts on to the side of the instrument housing. And then it actually has a metal lip up here that goes over the visor for the instrument cluster. And it just adds a few more mount points for a phone holder, for a camera, for whatever you want. That's one of the problems with the NT1100 is that they put the parking brake here. So it really cuts down on your usual bar space, and I try to get as many things off of the bars as possible. So this makes a nice option, and it's very inexpensive. Something that a lot of people add to the NT1100 is a wireless Android Auto or Apple CarPlay adapter. I chose the AA Wireless 2 mainly because it allows you to separate the audio from navigation and music from the bike's internal system. So those two things go directly to your headset, eliminating the pass-through of the bike, which caused me a lot of problems with getting the bike to sync up with the headset. This eliminates all of that. The other thing that a wireless adapter seems to do is that it eliminates the problem with cords. I had a lot of problems finding a cord that worked well between the bike and my phone. The AA wireless adapter, for some reason, is just a lot less sensitive to what cords you use. One thing I do need to note is that using this has eliminated my ability to make phone calls. I'm still working on that. Next up is a tire pressure monitor, which doesn't need a whole lot of explanation. You know what it does. It was really useful for me when I had a slow leak due to a staple in a relatively brand new tire. Now we move on to the last item, which was actually the first thing I put on. There was a 3-week wait time for the panniers on this bike when I first bought it. So I put on a little tail bag that I had from a previous bike, and it actually has come in very handy. Stores a couple of water bottles, my hat, my head covering, whatever. It's actually supposed to be expandable to accommodate a full-size helmet, which is kind of questionable, depending on what helmet you have. But it does hold a lot of stuff that I want to get to immediately. I just attached it to the rear rack as opposed to having straps going around. And I attached it just with bolts through the rear rack and lock nuts. It gives me just a little bit of easily accessible storage. And that pretty much wraps up the discussion of what I've added to the NT1100. I hope that's helpful if you're considering this bike or if you already have one and want to know what to add to it. But all in all, these are mainly convenience or cosmetic accessories that help out a little bit, but this bike is great right off the showroom floor. Till next time, ride safely out there.